Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's 2 Minutes to Review. I'm Matt.
I'm Zach.
And if you haven't joined us for one of these before, what we do is we have 2 minutes to review an album. Whoever has the longest review in under 2 minutes wins. So, Zach, what are we reviewing this time?
So we've been doing new releases, but Guns N' Roses' Chinese Democracy celebrates Ready to Feel Old 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
10 years ago, Chinese Democracy was released, and we're not even going to really bother you with the whole history. I think it's pretty well known, the history of this album, how it was the album that no one thought was ever going to even see the light of day after years and years and millions of dollars spent to record it, with multiple musicians appearing on the album in different formats. And when the album came out, it was very mixed response.
I was actually one of the people that was happy when this album came out, because I don't know if you remember, but Dr. Pepper actually did the infamous, if they put it out, everybody in America gets a Dr. Pepper.
And then Guns N' Roses did the infamous, we're suing you because of a false promise. You can actually do a whole episode about the marketing flaws and backlash behind this album, because even that's just an amazing example of, like, really the best press that you could have gotten out of this album release, because Axl did no interviews. Like, it took him 2 months to do even a single review, and it was mostly just him bashing everyone involved in actually releasing the album. And suddenly, like, it's just it's really a fascinating piece of rock history.
It is.
And because of that, the album hasn't really aged well. But over the past few years, now that Slash and Duff are back in Guns N' Roses, they've actually been playing a few songs off the album. So we decided, in celebration of the 10-year anniversary of Chinese Democracy, to do 2-minute review of this album with fresh ears. Because I don't know about you, Matt, but it actually has been a while since I listened to this album from front to back, uninterrupted, in a long time, maybe even 10 years.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, because of this, when I bought the album way back, I bought the vinyl copy thinking it was going to be a very big thing, and, you know, it's going to be worth a lot of money someday. No, I was grossly mistaken on that. However, just flipping open the album and just looking at the thank yous, I'm even surprised that Axl let some of the people on this put thank yous in here.
You know he didn't, though.
But somehow it made it into the print.
Depending on who you ask, like, he had no control of the insides. Like, that's the thing. Like, the whole, like, sorry, we're getting down a rabbit hole that we're not supposed to do on this episode, but it's just really fascinating because it really, the whole release of it was kind of half-washed.
Axl Rose actually thanks the band CKY.
Which is also really funny. Well, because, you know, they opened up for their disastrous 2002 tour. He wrote this in 2002. Yeah.
he thanks everyone at Best Buy, because this was a Best Buy exclusive, but that's still funny.
It's just it's everything about it is just bizarre.
If you could just go down the list of names that he's got in here, it is really funny.
And it's also funny too, because I'm sorry.
I know, I was going to say, but I digress. Maybe we should get to the review.
Well, one last thing, I do want to throw this in, because as I mentioned, there are a lot of different revolving doors on this album in regards to musicians. And I was kind of trying to keep track as to, like, which musicians actually appear on the album, which didn't. Even though John Freese, who's an amazing drummer, who's toured or played on your favorite albums and in your favorite rock bands you didn't even know about, he doesn't appear on the album, but his drum parts were so beloved by Axl that he made the drummers who did play on the album essentially learn John Freese's like written parts and play it note for note. So he actually is given writing credit for the drum parts and the drum arrangements. And then I didn't realize, because Bumblefoot, who's a great guitarist, he joined the band in 2006. I, for some reason, initially thought he was on the album much less than he actually is. I think he's actually on most of the songs, along with Robin Finch and Buckethead. Buckethead. I'm getting my Bumbles and Buckets mixed up. And while Richard Fortus, who's in the band currently still, he actually appears on the album a lot less than I thought. So it's just really fascinating, and you can, like we just did right now, you can really get into a crazy wormhole of facts about this album.
Oh yeah, and Axl Rose really likes to speak in second person.
I don't think he wrote it.
Well, no, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's crazy because it says down here at the bottom.
This is probably news to him that he has the thank you notes.
Axl's main vocals are on blah, 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 blah. All Axl's vocals are produced by Axl.
He didn't write that.
It's just so funny.
If you told him, hey, you know that Chinese Democracy came out, he'd probably be like, wait, what?
Well, he's singing them on tour. I mean, he's got to know.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some money that was deposited into Axl Rose's bank account.
Listen, he probably, not much money was deposited into his bank account after this album, but he probably knows. But I also would not be surprised. I'm just saying, would not be surprised if it's a surprise to him. That's all I'm saying. Let's get to the competition.
All right.
So do you want to go first? Actually, no, I want to go first.
I kind of figured you would want to go first. I want to go first. All right. Ready?
Yes.
So once again, the rules are longest review in under 2 minutes wins. Go over 2 minutes and you lose.
Sucker.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Ultimately, this album is a mixed bag of pleasant surprises and missteps. That's really the best way to say it, because there's songs like Better, This I Love, and Prostitute that really are standouts that could still hold its own against some of the more bigger hits from Guns N' Roses, that they contain some of the classic GNR elements with splashes of modern influences. And even songs like Scrapped and Rehot and the Bedouins, they have some really good ideas in them. There's a little bit lacking in the production standpoint. But so songs like, again, Better and This I Love really are standouts that I still would love to hear live. And I think if they got the proper single release, they would be huge. Then you get songs like Shackler's Revenge and If the World. These are songs that really try a little too hard to be modernized. Or a modernized Guns N' Roses version, and they just don't come off well, and they actually sound even more outdated than they do modern. But then, which, everyone gives it, hawks on the whole modern element, then you got songs like Street of Dreams and Sorry that actually sound like the band is trying a little too hard to be like classic Guns N' Roses, and ultimately sounding like Use Your Illusion outtakes. But all in all, Axl really does sound good, and he really proved in this album that he still has a lot of gas in the tank. And as much as you might want to say, I wish Slash was on this album and, he's really missed, the guitarists that they do have on this record really do a stellar job at, stepping it up, especially Robin, who has really been Nine Inch Nails' secret weapon for many, many, many years. So in short, or in conclusion, there's a few missteps and there's a few things I'd like to fix from a production standpoint, but ultimately Chinese Democracy does contain a lot that will surprise some fans and actually overall be still enjoyable among GNR's catalog. So again, in short, definitely an album worth revisiting.
Okay.
Before we move any further.
What's your star review?
Well, okay, my star review.
Give your star review.
3.5.
Yeah, okay.
3.5.
I sensed some in there.
I was about to say maybe 4, but it's like, no, because like I said, there's definitely missteps that are not as, I should also preface this, missteps that are not as horrendous as some fans might like you to believe.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they're missteps that you can make arguments that were kind of made on Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
Okay.
But at the same time, it would be wrong to give it a 4 star. I think 3.5 is fair.
Okay.
Because there are songs that I think still actually hold up.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now, before we move forward, before we get to you, was I under 2 minutes without telling me the actual score?
No.
Oh!
You went over.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you did.
By how much?
2.4 seconds. So 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and 4/10 of a second.
No.
Yeah. That one time I went over, you went further over.
I went further over. Oh no.
If I remember correctly, I only went over by like 10ths of a second.
Hold on. You started as soon as I said I'm Zach, I bet.
It wasn't that far back.
Oh man. I had actually a bad feeling I went over. I just got passionate about Guns N' Roses. All right, so now that means that you could just be a jerk and just say it's good and be done, and you technically would win.
Yes, you're correct.
But if you want to be a real champion, you'll still give it the good old try.
I'll put the belt on the line. I'll do it.
All righty.
All right.
So now, as long as you're under 2 minutes, you win. And if you don't, then we are both sore losers who...
Well, then it's a tie at that point.
That doesn't sound as fun.
All right, let's do this.
You ready? Do you want to do a few Welcome to the Jungle bars to warm up?
Sha-na-na, na-na-na, knees, knees, knees.
That sounded just like Axl Rose.
Yeah.
All right. You're about to enter the jungle in 3, 2, 1.
I always had a feeling that when I heard this album, it was something familiar, and it was something also very distant. Like, it was surreal that it came out. But the more I thought about it when I went back to this is one large trip down the history of Guns N' Roses. If you think about it from this perspective, you start out the album really hot, okay? So the title track, Shackler's Revenge, Better, If the World, those are great songs. It starts the album out, and it's hot just like Appetite for Destruction. Then it cools off a little bit, kind of like Lies, because there was a lot of acoustic stuff there. Then it goes into the more intricate things at the end, like Use Your Illusion. So it feels like they built this knowing that this was the culmination of a career, because who knew Guns N' Roses was going to get back together ever to tour? But there are a lot, and this is very contradictory to what Zach just said, but to me, I feel like there's a lot of inconsistencies with the vocal performances just because it's over such a large range of time that it's very hard to keep consistent. Most albums are recorded maybe in 4, 5, 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year, couple. I mean, that's not that long, 10 years. And Axl's health in that 10 years, I mean, he was overweight, he was underweight. Axl, you know, it's human nature, but Axl just, you can't keep up a straight vocal performance over a decade. And then I also kind of feel like on certain songs like Madagascar, they're just trying to pull at the nostalgia strings, because in there they use the same samples that they do on Civil War. What we've got here is failure to communicate. And really, that's kind of what this album feels like. It's trying so hard just to communicate that we are Guns N' Roses, but we're not really Guns N' Roses. I want to be more than just Axl and Friends. In conclusion, I think it's a good album. Is it great? No. Is it good? Yes. Does it have problems? Absolutely. But still, I think for being a 10-year long produced album, it hits what it needs to hit.
Beautifully said. I would make the argument that it was definitely a better review than I gave. Too bad that's not the point of the game.
Yep.
Before I tell you whether or not you did indeed win, what's your rating?
You gave it 3.5.
Don't just copy.
No, I'm not copying. You gave it 3.5. I feel like this album definitely is not a 4, not even close to 5. 2 is too low. 2.5. Still maybe too low. I'm going to have to go with a 3-star album because it's musical. It has melodies. It has vocals. They're not out of key. But from the musicians that are on this album, it's not their fault. It's, I would say, Axl being too controlling. I would say this is a 3-star album. So
before I reveal your fate again, I'm just curious, because again, like I felt there's definitely some great songs on this album.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one song off this album that you would either say is your favorite off the album, and that you're actually okay, you'd be okay with the current Guns N' Roses playing live, what song would that be?
And that's hard because we saw Guns N' Roses.
Yes. But again, like whether or not you saw...
I wish that they would have done If the World.
That's the song I actually liked least.
See, and I really like it. I feel like it's got the most feeling on the song. Like, I feel like Madagascar and IRS fake the feeling.
Oh, I agree with that.
All of that. It's so like, I'm trying to produce this fake feeling. If the World really felt sincere.
And I felt the exact same way that you did about that song with the song This I Love. I thought it was A, Robin's guitar playing is phenomenal, and B, I thought that his vocals, there was just a sense of sincerity that some of the songs on the album were missing. Like, I thought, and I would love to hear that played live better, hearing the song then play better, and hearing Slash, because I love the outro solo that's on the record, but hearing Slash reinterpret it was really mind-blowing and great as well. So, all right, I digress though. Your goal was to get under 2 minutes. Did you get under 2 minutes? Well, tune in next week to find out if you did. No. No. Can I get a drum roll, please? You did not go under 2 minutes.
Wow.
In fact, you did. Apparently, we both are so passionate about this Guns N' Roses album, especially given that I think that was the longest intro we've ever done for any episode.
Well, it's 10 years of history.
It is.
And actually, it's 20 years of history because it's 10 years old.
Consider, yeah.
And another 10 for the production of it. So
it's true.
I mean, to do it in under 2 minutes, I would say if I left anything out, I'd regret it. And
it was also, it really wasn't exciting. It was exciting to revisit this album because when I first heard it, I liked it. As time went on, I was like, I kind of fed into the whole, everyone's like, it's not great. It's a disaster. When really they were talking about the release of it. So it's fun to revisit that album. For the record, you had 2 minutes, 15 seconds.
Wow.
And 84 yada, yada, yada.
Holy shit.
So that means we both are tied in theory because neither of us got under our 2 minutes. And we are both the losers.
We are indeed the losers.
My friend.
Wow.
I love so for everyone who obviously can't see what's going on right now because podcast Matt is like intensely reading his vinyl copy of the album.
I'm just looking at like the people on the songs, like
it's insane. Like there's like people who aren't even in the band that are playing on the album.
I mean, I don't know the exact timelines of everything, but just because I liked If the World and I was curious, the guitarists on here include Buckethead, Robin Fink, Paul Tobias, and Bumblefoot. Acoustic guitar by Buckethead. I thought that they were in completely different ends of the spectrum when it came to this album. One was at the start, one was at the end.
They were.
Right, and that's why it's so curious that it's like, okay, you were at the beginning of 10 years, you're at the end of 10 years.
That's why, all things considered, from the music standpoint, if you were to not know anything about the history of the album, besides Axl's voice here and there really wasn't that much inconsistencies with the sounding of the musicianship, I should say. At least from my opinion. I like I said, I really was shocked that Richard Fortus was not on the album more than I thought he was. I really thought, because like you said, Bumblefoot, Ron Thal came in toward the end of the recording, so I figured he was
right. He was in the band for a while they were on tour.
Bumblefoot, no, but he wasn't that. Well,
I thought he was.
He joined in 2006, and this album came out in 2008.
Right.
In fact, I mean, when I saw Guns N' Roses at the Hammerstein Ballroom, it was May 2006. He had literally, there was rumors that he was in talks to join the band, but he wasn't officially a member of the band until like a week prior to the shows happening.
Right, but then that means he would have been on tour, right?
Yeah, but they weren't in the studio.
But it's just so odd. Like this is definitely one of the oddities of rock and roll. Like just like I said, or not like I said, like you said, I was reading this because I'm just curious going back.
Oh yeah.
So if you have a copy of this, whether it's CD or vinyl, crack it open and just what you know now, read the liner notes. Yeah. It's insane. It reads like a comedy at this point.
And honestly, even just like reading all the magazine articles and all the behind the scenes stuff, it really is a fascinating piece of history. Like and just hearing the stories of, like I actually would make the argument that all the crazy things that Bumblefoot supposedly did during their sessions, like recording from a chicken coop, are actually the least interesting things about this. It's just knowing how many people were in and out, and knowing that some of these songs were actually finished a long time ago, just never saw the light. And even then, just like finding out how uninvolved certain people were with the whole artwork, even, it's just fascinating. Because if you look at the booklet, it's like obviously old photos that like the label is like, well, we have to use these. We got nothing else.
Right.
It's just fascinating. But again, we digress.
This has been the longest edition of 2 Minutes to Review.
And we promise the longest ever.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I'm Matt.
I'm Zach. And if you like all of our shows on Epic Footnote Productions, give us a like or a follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and stay up to date on all the things Epic Footnote Productions.
And we will talk to you next time. It's 2 Minutes to Review. Later.